So the year is 2024, and I just want to know something. Would you buy a nearly 20-year-old camcorder? Well, you clicked on this video, so I've at least piqued your interest just a little bit. Or you've been following this channel for a while. And if you haven't been following this channel, well, you better start. Because we talk about all sorts of different kinds of camcorders from the 80s, 90s, and early to mid 2000s, just like this here Sony DCR-VX2000 MK2. So let's check it out and see if it's worth adding to your camera collection. Hey there, welcome back to my camera collection. Today we're going to be checking out the Sony DCR-VX2100, or as I call it, the Sony VX2000 MK2, or the prosumer version of the Sony DCR-PD170. And before we start, I'll have links down in the description for accessories that will get one of these camcorders rolling for you. So that will include batteries, chargers, tapes, video converters or recorders, and some other accessories that will just make your filming experience a lot more fun with one of these Sony VX2100s or similar. Along with that, I've been having a lot of people leave comments asking how I capture my video footage and put it on my computer or my phone. Well, I have a playlist made for that, and I'll leave a link to that down in the description as well, and you can look through those videos and find the best way that will work for you. Now, these are all different ways that I have tried capturing footage, and you can just look through those videos and find the best method that works for you. So with all that being said, we'll be going over the design of this. We'll be checking out the specs, the features. We'll talk a little bit more about the camera, what I think of it, and I'll show you some of the test footage at the end of the video. So let's get into it. So if you're into skateboarding or action sports in a whole, you have probably seen some form of action sports video or skate video filmed with this camera, or you have probably seen it somewhere, someone using it to film skateboarding. And that's really where this camera's popularity is and has come from, and that's really where most of their use has been at over the years. I know there's an article online talking about these cameras being used in the adult film industry. Yeah, so I don't know about the VX2100s, but I definitely know the Sony VX1000 and the 2000 were used quite a bit in the adult film industry. So if you own one of those cameras, it may or may not have had some bodily fluids on it, if you will, to be E-rated, if you will. Now you might be wondering, well, why do I call it the Sony VX2000 MK2? Well, because that's really what this is. If you put the VX2000 and the VX2100 right next to each other, they're practically the exact same camera. And the way that it performs is the exact same as well. The VX2000 was out, and it was out for a few years, and I think people were looking for something new, something a little better, you know, kind of get the technology rolling a little bit. They were wanting a new camera to come out, so Sony pretty much just came out with the same camera and made the low light better. And that's pretty much it. The design is slightly different, and I'll talk about that here in just a second, but I mean, everything else on the camera is practically copy and paste. So that's why I call it the Sony VX2000 MK2. And I'm kind of curious why they didn't call it that. Instead, they just named the model the 2100, which is pretty much like the 2.0 version. So yeah, if you get a VX2000 or a 2100, they're essentially the same exact camera. It's just the 2100 does a lot better in low light situations. And you might be wondering about the Sony PD170 that I mentioned. So these cameras are technically a prosumer level camcorder. Sony did come out with a Sony PD150, which is the pro version of the Sony VX2000, and the 170 model is the pro version of the 2100. Really, those cameras look identical to these as well. A little bit different colors, but they feature XLR audio only. I have a couple of reviews on those cameras as well. I'll leave some cards up above if you want to check those out. But the only thing that sucks about those cameras is they didn't have an onboard mic. They only used XLR audio. So if you don't have an XLR mic, or if the mic bracket was broken, you had to pretty much find a way to mount them, especially nowadays because they've been so, you know, used and abused over the years. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. So that's kind of the family members of the VX2100. So as of the VX family, you have the VX700, the VX1000. Those two cameras came out at the same time. And then you had the VX2000 and the PD150. And then you also had the Sony VX2100 and the Sony PD170. So those were kind of all the cameras made in that ballpark. And there was some other DV cam cameras that came out in that era, but I have yet to check those out. Those were kind of more in the ballpark of like the Sony TRD 900 and 950 models. So now that I'm done rambling about all that, let's go over some of the specs that I found with this camcorder. This Sony VX2100 was released in 2003. And when it was brand new, you could get it for $3,000. And if anybody cares or wants to know, the Sony VX700 and the 1000 was released in 1995. The Sony VX2000 was released in 2000, and the 2100 was released in 2003. Now, this specific camera is actually from 2006, and it was made in the fourth quarter. So this camera is almost, it was almost made in 2007. I'm not sure when they stopped making the VX2100, but that's quite a few years to be making the same model. So there's probably quite a few of these out in the world that you can still find. So it has a 1/3 of an inch 3CCD sensor, and it creates 340,000 effective pixels, so that's how much you can actually get out of it. You can choose between 12-bit and 16-bit audio, and it has a 12 times optical zoom, along with a 24 and a 48 times digital zoom. 48 digital zoom is not terrible, but it's still kind of high. If you need something a little bit more than the 12 times optical zoom, I definitely would just recommend using the 24 digital zoom. That way it's not super distorted. But I think you'll find that the 12 times optical zoom is a lot more usable than you thought it would be. And the lens is a 6mm all the way up to a 72mm. And the aperture on that is a 1.6 to a f2.4. It has optical image stabilization, or as Sony likes to call it, super steady shot. And it does feature a 2.5-inch LCD screen, which is fairly small for it being a prosumer level camcorder and for the size of the camcorder. But the LCD screen does create 211,000 pixels, and it does feature a colored viewfinder, and it creates 180,000 pixels. So kind of rare that the screen has more pixels than the viewfinder, but I think that's a good thing. Now, all of your manual controls that you can control are your focus with this here focus wheel. You have a manual zoom, which they consider that manual because you're doing it with your hand instead of relying on the servo zoom or like the motors in the camera to move the zoom in and out. You have manual exposure, manual white balance, manual shutter, manual iris, and manual audio controls. The shutter speed is a 1/4 all the way up to 1 in 10,000. So yes, this thing can do pretty good in low light and bright light situations. Now, with it being a prosumer level camera, you still get some cheesy video effects and digital effects in the camera. So for video effects, you get slim, stretch, solarization, monotone, sepia, and negative. And as for the digital effects, these are a little bit different. You get old movie, so kind of gives it like the movie bars, and then it pretty much just looks like sepia, and probably a lower shutter speed is what I'm guessing. Kind of like more of a Super 8 look to it, I guess, if you want to compare it to that. You have luminance key, flash motion, still, and trail. Along with that, you get some fades as well. So you have a black fade, overlap, wipe, monotone, and random dots. So you get some different cheesy early to mid 2000s digital and video effects. I don't even want to call these like early to mid 2000s because these kinds of effects have been around since like the mid to late 90s. maybe even early 90s. So yeah, they didn't change these very often. So I still think that editing programs were very limited back in the day. So I still think you had to do a lot of the shooting with the camera and the effects with the camera, even though this camcorder is from 2006. You also get 8 different title presets, and you get 2 custom title presets. So you can save 2 different custom titles of your own, or you can choose from different ones that have been pre-installed in the menu. And lastly, we'll talk about the weight of the camera. It does weigh 3 pounds, 6 ounces, or 1.5 kilograms for anybody who's in Canada or Europe. For anybody who doesn't live in the United States. So those are all of the important specs in my opinion. So I forgot to mention the difference between the VX2100 and the VX2000. They're essentially the same camera. You do get a couple different things though. So the VX2100 is kind of this gunmetal gray, and VX2000 is kind of more of a gold color. With the VX2100, you do get a bigger eye cup. The one that comes on the VX2000 is kind of smaller. It kind of looks more like the ones that come on like the Sony TR-V900s. So you don't get the big eye cup here to cup around your eye. And even the piece itself is bigger than the VX2000. Along with that, if you look at the VX2000 top handle, you'll see little grooves in it for like your fingers to sit in, kind of like how like some older cars have like the little grooves on the back of the steering wheel for your fingers to sit in. Same thing. So the VX2100 is just flat, I guess. So it doesn't have the little grooves for your fingers to sit in. And then if I remember right, the VX2000 doesn't have 3 different record options. You get, on the VX2000, you get the record button back here, and then you get the record button right here on the body. So the 2100 actually has a 3rd one up here on the top, which is actually nice because then you don't have to use 2 hands to start recording if you're using it handheld like this. You can just use your thumb to start recording up here. But I do love that it has 3 different options to start recording. And the Sony PD150 and 170 are like the exact same. They're both different. They're both their own different colors as well. But you get the bigger eye cup on the 170 and the 150 doesn't. And you get 3 record buttons on the 170, and the 150 only has the 2. Just like the VX2000. So it's kind of weird like that. But going over that, let's go over the features, huh? This one is a little bit more packed full of features than some of the other cameras I have talked about. We'll start at the front. You do get this nice plastic lens hood. It does kind of have like a rubber coating around it. You can kind of squeeze it and stuff. I think it kind of makes it nice for if you're moving the camera around, maybe in like tight spaces or something. It'll kind of absorb the impact and maybe not break the lens hood. But it's nice because it has the little lens hood that pops open like that. That way you're not taking it off and putting it on, or you don't have like the lens cap where you gotta pull it off and then it dangles to the side. I hate that. So I love the lens hoods that have the little eyelids that pop open, I guess. If you want to take it off, you can unscrew it right here and then turn it counterclockwise and it'll pop off. But the lens threads on it are a 58mm. So for my skateboarders out there, if you want to use this for skateboarding, you can use like an Optica 58mm fisheye if you can find one that's still available out on the market. If not, or if you don't own one yourself already, I'll leave a link in the description for a compatible fisheye. Like I said before, you get your manual focus ring and your manual zoom ring. Along the side, you get your ND filters. So on the bottom is off, and then you have your 1-step and your 2-step. You do get your manual focus switch. So on the top is auto, in the middle is manual, and then if you push it all the way down, it will go into infinity. You have a button for your index markers, and if you're in manual focus mode, you can push the push auto and it'll go back into, it'll autofocus real quick and get you back to where you need to go if you need to quickly autofocus while you're in manual focus. You have a button for your manual exposure on or off. And then when you're in manual exposure, you have this wheel here to adjust your exposure. Down below that, you do get your fade button to turn it on or off, along with your backlight button and your spotlight button. So if you're filming something on a stage, that is a good option to turn on. If you are recording something on a stage and you got spotlights and all that kind of stuff going on. On the screen, you get your other screen on the screen for monitoring your tape info along with your battery info and all that kind of stuff. If you're in playback or something and you're using play, or you're playing it, you're rewinding, or if you're recording or stopped, it has some other information on there as well. We'll lift up the viewfinder and you get your focus adjust here for your eyesight, and you have a release switch here, so you can actually take the magnifier piece off, and you can clean the little LCD screen and stuff like that in there. If you get like dirt or hairs or something in there, you can clean it and make it nice and clear and pretty and make it not so distracting when you're trying to record with the viewfinder. But under that, you got some more manual button functions here, and you get your, well, auto mode. You can have it in auto lock mode, so pretty much manual mode, or you can hold your presets. You also get your AE program button. You get your shutter speed, so you can turn the shutter speed manually on or have it auto, along with your white balance, on or off, manual, auto, off, and then you can have your audio levels, the manual function on or off. Along with that, you get your scroll wheel to go through the menu, and it pushes in like a button. That's also how you adjust like the white balance and your exposure, or sorry, your shutter speed, your audio levels, your white balance, and all these buttons back here. That's how you adjust it. And this one's a little bit glitchy. A lot of Sony camcorders, especially the ones with mini DV tapes and high 8, digital 8, they all have this very similar scroll wheel here. And over time, I think they start to get dirty on the inside and they glitch out, and sometimes it can be really, really hard to navigate through the menu. Other times they work perfectly, and anywhere in between. You get a little slot here for your memory stick, your Sony memory stick. So if you want to take pictures, that's where the pictures will be at. I actually forgot to mention, to open the screen, you have a button right there. You push it and it pops open, and then you have more functions here on the inside. But this mesh right there is your playback speaker. And then you get a bunch of different functions here. So in the little white box, it says memory. Those are your controls when you're in playback to go through like the memory stick. So you have your play, index, and delete. You have your minus and plus, probably to move up and down in the picture menu. And then your memory mix. For your memory stick section, you have your display on and off button, along with your date and time code, title, digital effects, your picture effects. You have a timer, start recording after like 5 seconds, or take a picture after like 5 seconds, or whatever the intervals are that you can choose on there. And you have your zebra switch, so you can have it off 70% or 100%. And then on the LCD screen itself, you get your LCD brightness and your volume up and down. So you can choose how much sound you want coming out of it, or how bright or dim you want the LCD screen. So we'll close that. If you watched a lot of my other videos, you'll start to notice a lot of similarities with Sony mini DV camcorders. You get your power switch / record button here, and you get a little lock button here. So if you want to just be in record mode and you don't want to accidentally go into photo mode or memory stick mode, you can lock that so that you'll only go into record mode and not photo mode. And you got your eject button here to eject the tape, your photo button to take photos when you're in photo mode, your rocker zoom here. I love Sony rocker zooms. They're always nice and responsive and do what you need to do. You got a button here on the tape deck door, and when you eject the tape, put a new one in, all that kind of stuff. When you go to close it and it's loading up the tape, you can't close the tape door unless you push this little button. There's something in there that actually locks into place, so you have to push this button when you close it to actually lock it. The hand strap actually looks very, very good. It's not deteriorating or anything like that. This VX2100 is in really, really good shape. Along with that, you get a couple rubber doors here, and you get your headphone jack, 3.5mm headphone jack, along with your LANC, or your wired remote control, and that is a 2.5mm jack. And if you bought this camera brand new, it actually came with a wired remote for editing and stuff. And it was a big ass remote. So that was actually pretty handy back in the day. You get a little bit of a bigger rubber door here. And this is where all of your video in and out ports are. So you get your S video, your full RCA or AV cables, the yellow, white, and red plugins there. And just below that, kind of hard to see, but you have your Firewire port right there. So you can actually have video come out of this or video go into this, and then you can record footage to the tape that way. Just above that is your second record button. A good thing to have multiple record buttons on the camera. Now, just under the handle, you will see, kind of hard to see on here, but you got the little orange lights under there. So those are all your playback functions. And you have your in search and your edit search. Up on the handle behind the, or I guess in front of the viewfinder, you have your custom preset button there. And you also get a infrared receiver there. So if you have the wired remote for it, it'll actually detect it from the back of the camera. And there's another one here on the mic at the front of the camera for the wired remote. And you get a switch here for different speeds on the zoom rocker up on the handle, or you can just turn it off. Obviously you get the zoom rocker here and a third record button like we talked about. You get a cold shoe as well, so you can hook up your lights or external microphones or a monitor if you want, and another little compartment here for your external mic plug-in, 3.5 millimeter. And then along with the infrared remote or receiver, you have your tally lamp here on the back and another one on the back here where the infrared receiver is as well. And I think other than that, that is pretty much everything that you need to know on the features. You obviously get your 1/4-20 threads here, or your 1/4 inch threads, so you can put it on a tripod if you need to. This one's been used quite a bit on a tripod, it looks like, because the paint is gone. But I mean, other than that, this camera is in really good condition. A couple little bit of scratches here and there, some divots from a tripod plate, but it's not in terrible condition. This thing is in really good condition, actually. Okay, I apologize for the different look. My other camera died, so this one's looking a little different. So I actually really enjoy the look of this camera. There's something just about like the prosumer to professional style cameras. I love the way that they look. They just look, I don't know. I don't want it to make it sound stupid, but like it looks professional, like they look cool. You know, I guess people will kind of look at you and be like, oh, that guy really knows what he's doing. But at the end of the day, you know, you got a 20-year-old camcorder. So there's gonna be people out there that don't actually know that it's that old, but they look cool. They look like you know what you're doing. There's just something cool about it. And to me, I think it's the way, like where the mic sits, it's the top handle, and then you have like the big viewfinder here on the back. I don't know, there's like, it's most definitely the top handles. Like if you took the top handle away, they don't look as cool, I guess. And it adds another element to it. It makes it super versatile on a bunch of different ways on how to hold it. And I like the Sony VX models because they're boxy in certain areas and then they're nice and round in certain areas. I don't know, like the body portion itself, like especially right in here, it's real boxy, but then like the viewfinder area is really round, but down in here it gets a little boxy. The handle is round and boxy in different areas, but then you get to the front, like where the lens is. I mean, the lens is completely tubular, dude. And then I don't know, you get this kind of boxy area, and then the lens hood is boxy and round in certain areas as well. I don't know, it has a good like flow of roundness and boxiness. I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it. Maybe one of you guys can explain what you think is cool about these prosumer style cameras, and even ones like that are still made today. There's something fun about using them. Now, generally I sell the cameras that I'm reviewing, but because this one is starting to get harder and harder to find, I'm keeping this one for myself. I should have kept the VX2000 for myself as well, but at that time I figured I would be able to find VX2000s a little easier, and since then they've been hard to find ones that are working or that are at a price I'm willing to pay, or ones that aren't a Japanese model. because I really want to avoid Japanese models for myself. So yeah, I'll be keeping this one. But let me know what you think of the Sony VX2100. Do you like it more than the VX2000? Would you rather have one over the VX2000? And if you own one, let me know what you think of the build quality and just the overall performance and quality of it. Let me know if it's worth getting in 2024. I know that it's still in standard definition, but it can be very fun to film with older camcorders. You don't get these camcorders to have good video quality. You have them to have a nostalgic look to your videos and just to have fun with. So since this camera came out in 2003, let me know how old you were in 2003. Were you even born yet? I was probably 7 years old when this camera came out. And again, make sure you check the description for the links that I am providing for accessories like batteries, chargers, tapes, video recorders, and fisheyes for the VX2100, along with the playlist that I have provided for capturing your video footage. And speaking of video footage, let's check some out from this camcorder and see if we like it or not. Oh shit! So thank you for watching this video. If you want to watch some other fun, interesting videos on Sony camcorders, you can clack or tip the screen up above. And if you want to check out my previous video, you can clack or tip the screen above as well. And let me know what camera you want to see next on the channel. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you enjoy the content, make sure you subscribe, because we talk about old school retro camcorders almost on a weekly basis. And on that note, we'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.